Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're plunging into something that sits right at that really fascinating intersection of ancient wisdom and, well, modern paranoia.
Sounds intriguing.
You're talking about Kundalini energy. You know, that powerful concept from Eastern spiritual tradition.
Oh, yeah, I know it.
And this really unsettling conspiracy theory that suggests it's being deliberately suppressed, maybe even weaponized.
Right. And you've given us a really compelling stack of sources here. I mean, it covers everything from the, millennial-old understanding of this internal force to these claims that it's actively being hidden or maybe misdiagnosed as illness and secretly exploited by powerful groups.
So our mission in this deep dive is pretty clear. We want to unpack what Kundalini is traditionally understood to be.
Got it.
Then dive deep into the claims of this conspiracy theory, the suppression, the weaponization, all of that.
Okay.
We need to look at what proponents call evidence versus, what skeptics are.
Counter arguments, yeah.
And ultimately try to figure out why this particular idea resonates so strongly with, well, so many people.
So consider this your guided tour, yeah.
Sure.
We'll cut through the noise, get you the essential insights from these sources.
Help you grasp the core ideas at play here.
Exactly.
All right, let's dive right into the foundation, because before we can even talk about suppression, we have to understand what traditional wisdom says Kundalini actually is.
Absolutely. You have to start there. I mean, the whole theory is built on the idea that this energy is real and incredibly powerful.
Makes sense.
The term Kundalini, it comes from Sanskrit, translates roughly to the coiled one, or serpent power.
Okay, serpent power coiled at the base of your spine. That imagery is pretty evocative, right?
It is, definitely. And for practitioners, it's not just like poetic language. It's considered a tangible biospiritual energy.
Tangible?
Yeah. The sources describe it as this dormant, divine, primal life force, basically the universal cosmic energy, Shakti, but residing within the individual. Usually shown coiled 3.5 times at the root chakra, right at the base of the spine.
So it's not seen as just a psychological state or, a belief, but a literal energetic potential.
Yeah.
In everyone.
Precisely. It's often called the evolutionary potential of human consciousness, this huge reservoir of energy and awareness just sort of waiting to be awakened.
And this awakening process,
yeah,
it's tied into the chakras, right? Those energy centers.
Intimately tied, yeah. Those 7 primary energy centers along the spine, and also a central energy channel called the Sushumna Nadi.
Okay, so the idea is this energy, once it wakes up, it travels up that central channel, activating these centers.
That's the core concept, yeah. The goal, traditionally, is for the Kundalini to ascend all the way up to the crown chakra, at the top of the head.
And how does this awakening happen? Is it like flipping a switch?
Not usually, no. According to the sources, there are 2 main ways it happens.
Okay.
The most common, and the one traditionally recommended, is gradual and intentional. This involves disciplined spiritual practices, passed down through lineages, things like specific forms of yoga, Kundalini yoga, Kriya yoga.
Meditation, breathing.
Exactly. Deep meditation, specialized breathing techniques called pranayama, chanting, devotion, and often, importantly, guided by an experienced teacher or guru.
So that's the controlled, safer path.
That's how it's seen, yeah. Controlled and safer.
And the other way sounds less controlled.
Much less. It's the spontaneous, or you could say accidental awakening.
Oh.
This is less common. It can be triggered unexpectedly by, well, intense emotional events, trauma, sometimes drug use, prolonged illness.
Or just being ready for it.
Or sometimes, yeah, just the person's inherent spiritual readiness. But these unplanned awakenings, they're frequently described in the sources as being way more disorienting, intense, really challenging to integrate.
And regardless of how it starts, this awakening process, it can involve some pretty dramatic experiences, right? Sometimes unsettling. They call it Kundalini syndrome or crisis.
Absolutely. The sources detail a huge range of reported effects. Physically, you might experience intense heat or cold, tingling, powerful vibration.
Like electricity.
Yeah, electrical currents sometimes. Involuntary body movements, jerking, trembling, spasms, changes in breathing, pressure sensations in the head or spine, even digestive issues or rashes, pain sometimes.
Wow, that sounds intense enough. But then there are the sensory effects mentioned too.
Yes, and these can be quite profound. Things like seeing inner lights, complex visuals like mandalas.
Inside your head.
Yeah, or experiencing internal sounds, anything from buzzing and roaring to like distinct inner music. Heightened senses are common too, altered perceptions of reality.
And emotionally and mentally, it sounds like you're on a wild ride.
It really can be. I mean, on one hand, people report intense bliss, peace, profound love, a sense of unity.
The good stuff.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it can involve extreme anxiety, fear, depression, confusion, intrusive or obsessive thoughts, feeling completely overwhelmed by the energy or the experiences.
And this is where the more extraordinary claims come in. The spiritual experiences.
Precisely. Things like out-of-body experiences, highly lucid dreams, visions.
Psychic stuff.
Apparent psychic abilities, yeah. Telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, deep empathy, a powerful connection to universal consciousness, past life memories sometimes.
Yeah.
Spontaneous healing abilities, moments of ego dissolution, and ultimately the potential for profound spiritual oneness. Enlightenment, basically. Union with the divine.
So the ultimate goal of this whole traditional path is pretty immense.
Yeah.
Spiritual liberation, self-realization, tapping into these potential gifts, the siddhis.
That's right. It's described as moksha, liberation, self-realization, understanding your true nature, union with the divine, a radical transformation of consciousness, and the manifestation of those spiritual abilities, the siddhis.
Okay, let's unpack this. If Kundalini is traditionally understood to be this incredibly powerful, transformative energy residing within everyone, capable of leading to such profound states, well, it starts to make you wonder, right? Like, why isn't this common knowledge? Why aren't we all meditating our way to enlightenment in school?
Exactly.
And that question seems to be the fertile ground where this conspiracy theory really takes root.
Precisely. The theory springs from this potent mixed belief in this deep spiritual potential, coupled with, a pervasive modern distrust of authority figures.
Yeah, that's definitely around.
And a deep-seated feeling that fundamental truths are being deliberately hidden from us.
It totally taps into that truth and esotericism trope, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The idea that if ancient mystics knew something powerful and it's not mainstream now,
it must be because it's been suppressed. That's the logic, exactly.
So the secrecy in traditional paths gets twisted.
The conspiratorial view takes the traditional emphasis on secrecy, guidance, difficulty, which, within the traditions, is seen as necessary for safety, for proper integration, and reinterprets it as evidence of an external cover-up. It's not hard to find because it's sacred. It's hard because whoever they are, don't want you to find it.
And who are they in this narrative? Who's perceived as threatened by this?
Well, the theory points fingers at established power structures. Religious institutions are often top of the list.
Why them?
The idea is a direct experiential path to the divine. It bypasses the need for priests, dogma, organized religion's authority. If you can find God within yourself, why do you need a church?
Right. It threatens their whole infrastructure, their control over the spiritual narrative.
Exactly. And then you've got governments and corporations.
Oh, they fit in.
An awakened populace, according to the theory, would be far less susceptible to manipulation, propaganda, fear-mongering, consumerism.
Harder to control.
Much harder. People with enhanced intuition, critical thinking, inner power. They could potentially expose corruption, demand real autonomy. That's seen as a direct threat to the status quo.
And this theory seems to really zero in on the medical and pharmaceutical industries.
Oh, they are central to the claims of suppression, absolutely.
Right.
Well, if spontaneous healing and profound well-being are potential outcomes of Kundalini awakening, that directly undermines industries profiting massively from treating illness and managing mental health with medication.
Right, the profit motive.
Mm-hmm. And this theory doesn't exist in a vacuum, does it? It seems to fuse really easily with other well-known conspiracy narratives.
Like which one?
It's a perfect fit for many. The sources show it integrating with ideas like M-Cultura.
The mind control stuff.
Yeah, seeing those Cold War-era programs as maybe early, flawed attempts to understand or control internal systems like Kundalini. It links up with global elite or New World Order theories.
The shadowy cabal.
Right, claiming some elite group or ancient bloodlines secretly possess and use Kundalini power for themselves while keeping the rest of us ignorant.
Even ancient aliens theories connect somehow.
Yeah, some versions suggest maybe non-human entities taught Kundalini to a chosen few, or maybe they're even harvesting this energy from humans.
Wow.
And the depopulation agenda theory fits in too, the idea being that a disempowered, dependent, unawakened populace is easier to control and, in their view, potentially cult.
And a critical piece of this is the claim of deliberate misinformation and medicalization.
This is absolutely key. The theory claims that the intense symptoms of Kundalini awakening, physical, mental, emotional, aren't just similar to psychiatric conditions.
They're deliberately misdiagnosed.
That's the claim. It's not seen as a challenge of diagnosis. It's presented as a conscious strategy. Discredit the experience, label the person mentally ill, and force treatment that actually suppresses this spiritual energy.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's spell out the core claims of what this conspiracy theory says is actually happening.
Right. At its heart, the belief is that Kundalini is genuine. It's powerful. It's a universal biospiritual energy present in everyone.
And activating it unlocks
incredible potential, including those spiritual abilities, the CDs we mentioned, enlightenment, self-healing. Some proponents even try to link it to abstract concepts like that old 21-gram soul theory.
The weight loss at death thing.
Yeah, the discredited idea from early experiments. They might claim that measurable loss could actually be this activated Kundalini energy leaving the body. It's a stretch, but it gets woven in.
So the power is real, and according to the theory, it's being actively hidden from us.
Yes. A deliberate and systemic suppression of the knowledge and the practices needed to awaken it.
Oh.
The theory claims religious institutions, citing examples like, say, the Vatican or historical church actions, have deliberately obscured or distorted ancient texts and traditions that explicitly taught Kundalini practices.
And the motive?
Supposedly to maintain spiritual monopoly, keep people reliant on external dogma, not internal experience.
And it goes beyond just religion.
Absolutely. The theory alleges the mainstream education system actively excludes any teaching, even any mention of this inner human potential, just to keep populations unaware of their power.
And science. Academia.
They claim academic and scientific circles aren't just skeptical, they actively marginalize, ridicule, and defund any research into Kundalini phenomena, specifically to prevent verifiable proof that would challenge the dominant materialist worldview.
Which ties right back into that claim about medical misdiagnosis.
It's a core tenet. The theory asserts that those sometimes dramatic symptoms during an awakening, the energy flows, movements, visions, intense emotions, are deliberately misdiagnosed by mainstream psychiatry.
As psychosis or bipolar.
Exactly. They claim psychiatrists are either wittingly or unwittingly labeling these experiences as mental illnesses.
And the prescribed medication then becomes?
In this view, the medication isn't therapy, it's intentional suppression. Psychiatric drugs are seen as chemical dampeners, specifically designed to suppress spiritual energy, dull consciousness, prevent further awakening, and create dependency.
And the motive is profit.
The enormous profits of pharmaceutical companies are cited as the primary self-serving motive behind this alleged medical suppression.
Yeah, okay. And then there's the most unsettling part, the claim of secret exploitation and even weaponization.
This is where the theory really moves into darker territory,
Yeah.
It claims that while the masses are kept ignorant, a shadowy global elite.
Ooh, like who?
Supposedly ancient bloodlines, secret societies, high-ranking officials, they've secretly mastered Kundalini for their own use.
To do what?
Allegedly, they use this awakened energy for enhanced intuition, think finance, politics, for charismatic control or influence over others. Some theories even suggest, like, radical life extension or immortality.
Immortality? Really?
Linking back to legends of ambrosia or secret immortal societies, it gets pretty wild.
So they get the power, and everyone else is deliberately kept weak.
Exactly. And furthermore, the theory alleges the existence of classified military and intelligence programs.
Like Stargate or Culture again.
Seen as modern descendants of those projects, yeah. Allegedly actively training individuals as psychic spies or soldiers, using abilities like remote viewing or telepathy for espionage.
Wow.
Some even claim attempts are made to develop energy weaponry based on these principles, maybe for non-lethal crowd control or inducing psychological states like fear.
And we mentioned EMR earlier.
Yeah.
How does that fit in again?
Some variations of the theory, they draw on other conspiracy narratives. They suggest that ubiquitous, low-level electromagnetic radiation, EMR,
from phones, Wi-Fi,
might be used not just for communication, but subtly, to keep the collective human Kundalini dormant, prevent a widespread awakening, or maybe even attempt to harvest this energy somehow.
So the ultimate goal, according to this complex web of claims, is basically about maintaining control over human consciousness itself.
That's the bottom line, yeah. By keeping the vast majority of humanity spiritually unaware and disempowered, they remain docile, easily manipulated consumers, reliant on external systems, government, religion, corporate medicine.
Preventing a mass awakening.
Preventing a mass spiritual awakening that, in the theory's view, would inevitably shatter the existing power structures.
Okay, so those are some pretty far-reaching and, frankly, intense claims. What do adherents of this theory actually point to as their evidence? What are they citing from the sources they share?
Well, they point to several things, often interpreting existing phenomena through the lens of the conspiracy,
Like what?
First, that documented overlap we discussed between reported Kundalini crisis symptoms and recognized mental health condition symptoms. That's seen as definitive proof of deliberate misdiagnosis.
The argument being,
look how similar they are. It must be intentional to label one as illness to suppress the other truth. That's the thinking.
And the sheer scale of psychiatric medication use in society today.
That's viewed as direct evidence, a societal mechanism for sedation and control. The rise in prescriptions is interpreted as the pharmaceutical industry being fully complicit in this agenda. To dull consciousness, prevent awakening. The sheer volume itself becomes the evidence.
They also look to historical texts or traditions, right?
Yes, interpretations of ancient religious texts that proponents believe have been suppressed, altered, or distorted.
By the church or whoever.
Exactly, by institutions like the church or other authorities. They're cited as historical evidence of these control efforts stretching back centuries. They look for hints, however subtle, that they feel have been hidden away.
And what about more contemporary evidence? Stuff happening now?
This often involves unverified whistleblower accounts. Individuals usually appearing in fringe media or online.
Claiming inside knowledge.
Yeah, claiming to have worked in secret government psychic programs or witnessed suppressed information. Despite lacking credible, declassified documentation, proponents see these accounts as hints of genuine capabilities and proof of government interest in exploiting them.
And the attitude of mainstream science towards these topics, that's also seen suspiciously.
Absolutely. The perceived closed-mindedness or skepticism from mainstream academic and scientific institutions, it isn't seen by proponents as genuine scientific caution.
They see it as deliberate.
As a deliberate refusal to examine anything that contradicts the materialist paradigm. They interpret it as intentional suppression, not just methodological rigor.
And even that ancient symbol we started with, the coiled serpent.
It gets reinterpreted too. The theory claims that while the symbol is maybe shown to the masses in negative contexts, like the biblical serpent tempting Eve,
right,
it's secretly understood and utilized by the elite as the symbol of Kundalini power itself. It becomes like a hidden wink, showing they possess the knowledge while depicting it as evil to discourage everyone else.
And finally, this theory seems to validate a feeling a lot of people already have, doesn't it? That something's missing.
Yes, exactly. That pervasive feeling that there's a deeper spiritual reality or potential that conventional life or traditional institutions just aren't providing.
So the theory says?
The theory frames this feeling of being spiritually stuck as a direct result of the systemic suppression, a natural response to having your innate power stifled.
Okay, so we've laid out the traditional understanding, the genesis of the theory, its core claims, and what proponents cite as evidence. Now, it's really crucial to balance this. What are the counter-arguments? What does mainstream science, psychology, academia say in response?
Well, the most fundamental response from the mainstream is pretty straightforward. The lack of empirical objective evidence.
Medium.
Kundalini, as it's described, is subjective. It's an internal experience. It cannot currently be measured, observed, or quantified using standard scientific tools.
So science can't really weigh in.
Without objective, repeatable, falsifiable evidence, science simply can't validate its existence or the extraordinary claims about its power, let alone a conspiracy to suppress it.
So if someone feels those intense internal sensations, mainstream science looks for other explanations, things that can be tested.
Exactly. Mainstream psychology and neurology offer alternative explanations for the reported phenomena, things that align with established scientific understanding. Sensations like heat, tingling, vibrations, they could be linked to known physiological responses, heightened stress, arousal, maybe hyperventilation during intense meditation or breathing practices.
And the visions, strange thoughts.
Could be attributed to altered states of consciousness, hypersuggestibility, the powerful effect of belief and expectation, or even just misinterpreting normal bodily signals.
Okay, and the overlap in symptoms with mental illness. That's a big part of the theory.
Skeptics argue that symptom overlap is a complex issue in diagnosis across many fields, not just this one. Misdiagnosis certainly happens, yes.
But not necessarily a conspiracy.
But it's attributed to factors like medical professionals may be lacking training in recognizing what some traditions call spiritual emergence phenomena, or relying solely on Western diagnostic models, or just the inherent difficulty in differentiating between genuinely overlapping symptoms.
So a clinical challenge, not a plot.
From a mainstream perspective, yeah. It's a challenge in clinical practice, not evidence of a deliberate conspiracy to suppress spiritual energy.
So academic skepticism towards Kundalini isn't seen as malicious from that side.
No, from the mainstream perspective, it's just fundamental scientific methodology. Science requires testable hypotheses, repeatable results.
And Kundalini isn't testable that way currently.
Exactly. So the skepticism comes from its current untestability within the scientific framework, not from some plot against spiritual truth. Research funding, naturally, follows leads that can be empirically investigated.
What about the rise in psychiatric medication use? How is that explained outside the conspiracy framework?
Well, the medicalization of society is a huge, widely debated topic in sociology and medicine, but it's viewed as far more complex than just a singular conspiracy against Kundalini.
Other factors are involved.
Many factors. Changes in diagnostic criteria, aggressive pharmaceutical marketing, societal expectations for quick fixes, insurance structures, maybe a greater willingness now to seek treatment for mental health issues. It's a multifaceted trend, not necessarily a targeted plot.
And those whistleblower accounts, the secret government programs.
Mainstream skepticism points straight to the lack of verifiable evidence. These accounts are typically anecdotal, they lack credible, declassified documentation, and often the sources have a history of promoting other unsubstantiating claims.
So interesting stories, but not proof.
Without objective proof, they remain interesting stories, yeah, but not scientific evidence.
And I guess it's also just difficult to even study spontaneous awakening scientifically, right? Even if you wanted to.
Logistically and ethically, absolutely yes. Studying intense, unpredictable, potentially destabilizing internal experiences like spontaneous Kundalini awakenings, it's incredibly challenging from a research perspective, which also limits the amount of formal scientific investigation in this specific area.
So what does this all mean then? After looking at both the traditional understanding, the theory's claims, the alleged evidence, and the counter-arguments, why does a theory like this resonate so deeply? Why does it hold such appeal for so many people, even without mainstream validation?
Well, I think it taps into some incredibly powerful and fundamental human desires, and anxieties too. First and foremost, it feeds a deep desire for inner power, for empowerment.
Right.
The idea that immense transformative potential resides within you, accessible without needing external authority, gurus, institutions, that's profoundly attractive, especially in a world where people can often feel pretty powerless or insignificant.
It speaks to the spiritual seeker too, maybe someone disillusioned with traditional paths.
Exactly. For those who feel dissatisfied with mainstream religion or just feel a spiritual void, this theory offers a compelling alternative, a mystical, experiential path promising direct connection and profound personal transformation.
And it perfectly aligns with that widespread modern distrust of large institutions, government, corporations, medicine.
It provides a coherent framework, albeit a conspiratorial one, that makes sense of that distrust. It basically says, your skepticism is valid, and here's why you shouldn't trust them. They're actively working against your inner power.
It also feeds that compelling narrative that fundamental truths are being deliberately hidden from the public.
Yes, it gives concrete form to that feeling. For people who believe powerful, empowering knowledge is being suppressed, the Kundalini theory names what is being hidden and provides a dramatic why.
And I can really see how, for someone who has experienced intense, unusual, or challenging internal stuff, whether spiritual or not, this theory offers a powerful sense of validation.
That's a key factor, I think. If someone has gone through something profoundly intense or disorienting, that just doesn't fit neatly into conventional boxes.
Especially if they've been dismissed.
Especially if they've been dismissed or maybe pathologized by the medical system. This theory provides a framework that validates their experience. It makes it a significant spiritual event, not just an illness. It gives meaning to something that might have been confusing or scary.
And there's just the sheer allure of, untapped potential within us.
Absolutely. The idea of the human body and consciousness containing these vast, unexplored realms of energy and possibility, It's inherently captivating, isn't it? It promises a journey of self-discovery as grand and mysterious as exploring outer space.
And finally, it seems to fit comfortably within the worldview of the growing holistic health and wellness movement, often skeptical of pharmaceutical solutions.
It definitely resonates there. It aligns with the perspective that tends to view many societal and health issues as systemic and encourages seeking internal or alternative paths to well-being rather than relying solely on conventional medicine and pharmaceuticals.
So we've taken this deep dive, all the way from the ancient understanding of Kundalini as this potent, transformative energy, through this really complex modern conspiracy theory claiming its power is being deliberately hidden, even exploited by powerful, unseen forces.
Yeah, we've highlighted that core tension, haven't we? The idea of an internal path to spiritual liberation, contrasted with this chilling narrative of external forces working to keep humanity disempowered, unaware of its true potential.
And we've explored what proponents point to as evidence for this theory, versus the strong skepticism grounded in that lack of objective proof, and the presence of alternative explanations from mainstream science and psychology.
The theory clearly draws its power not really from empirical verification, but from tapping into those deep-seated human desires for empowerment, autonomy, and providing a dramatic explanation for societal distrust.
So as you reflect on, the hidden energies within us and the forces that shape our understanding of reality, consider that ancient symbol again, the coiled serpent. Is it merely a beautiful spiritual metaphor, potential energy waiting to rise? Or, as this theory provocatively suggests, is a secret key, a key to unlocking human potential, a potential so profound that maybe unseen forces might actively fear it, seek to control it, or even turn it against us?
The truth, like the serpent itself, remains elusive, doesn't it, coiled in debate. But that captivating what if at the heart of the Kundalini conspiracy, it continues to hold a powerful, unsettling grip on the human imagination.